all of our witnesses, and so I would remind the members as you go, 5 minutes. We have the clock over here so you can see it, and we're going to start with the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gaetz.
Mr. Meadows tells us that 4 votes control this town. Well, depending on how some counting goes out in California, 4 votes may control the House of Representatives and may be quite dispositive, and that 4-vote power might be substantially democratized. If the American people get one thing from this forum, it is that the broken rules of the House of Representatives are not a bug of the system. They are a feature of the system. We have built something that is purposefully mystified so that corrupt, bad decisions do not get exposed and so that members of Congress aren't held accountable when they vote for bad things. And there is a community of common fate that continues to allow that to persist. The principal critique that almost every member of Congress has about this place is that you get to a point where ultimately you feel like your vote doesn't matter. Your vote's controlled by the leadership. What is your one vote going to do? Well, now, with the opportunity we've been given with a very slim majority, everyone's vote matters to a far greater degree than at any other time during the public service of the people currently sitting on this dais. I will confess I'm not a member of the Freedom Caucus. I did not have a role in developing these rules. I don't agree with all of them. I am a proponent of proxy voting. I believe that sending the members out into their communities more often makes things harder for lobbyists. What if instead of just sitting at the Capitol Hill Club and buying people's votes and signatures on letter, $1,000, $5,000 at a time, these lobbyists actually had to get on regional jets and go to like Northwest Arkansas and Southern Mississippi and go lobby members of Congress? I think it would be terrific. Check out my essay in the Washington Examiner on that point. I would also observe that there are several things that I think we should actually work with Democrats on to change the rules. And let me outline some of those. I believe that no member of Congress, by House rule, should be allowed to accept a donation for their campaign from a federal lobbyist or a federal political action committee. That money all has strings attached to it, and anybody who tries to tell you otherwise is lying. And when members take hundreds of thousands of dollars from lobbyists and PACs, they work for them more than they work for their constituents. And guess what? I intend to offer that amendment on the House floor in January, and I already have Democrats ready to vote for it, maybe even all of them. The second thing I would suggest is that if someone is a member of Congress, they should be prohibited from lobbying for life. Why is it so hard to say that you should choose one side or the other to be on? You're either in the law-making game or you're in the influence peddling game. And those who choose to be in the influence peddling game, go ahead, but you should sacrifice that when you get the privilege to represent 750,000 people. I intend to offer that amendment on January 3rd, and I expect that there will be Democrats voting for it. I will also introduce an amendment to have a ban on members of Congress trading individual stocks. How can we say that that is not something that dilutes our trust in markets and in governance when people are essentially able to bet on the outcomes that they have an ability to somewhat control? And I expect Democrats to vote for that. And finally, I would observe something that has really worked well in the state of Florida, a single subject rule. A bill coming to the floor should only deal with one subject. I was incensed as a freshman when I had to vote on the Farm Bill and whether or not to authorize war in Yemen in the same vote. And we could still have broad bills that relate to insurance or education or appropriations, but the notion that we lash all of these things together does not serve our constituents and the American people. And I would expect, if we're in the majority, Democrats will vote for my amendment for a single subject rule. There is a vote, as Mr. Meadows said, coming up in the next 48 hours regarding conference rules. Here's what I would say about that. It doesn't matter a lick, because once we get to the floor, coalitions will be dynamic and volatile, and I can't wait to swim in those turbulent waters. My question would be to Mr. Meadows, is it treacherous and deceitful for conservatives to team up with liberals to achieve some of these reforms that would liberate our institution from the corrupt grip of lobbyists and special interests?
Well, Congressman Gaetz, obviously those amendments that you mentioned that you would put forth would get great bipartisan support. And that's part of the scary aspect for some in leadership is they don't want that because they know that it would pass. As you know, Congressman, when we served together, there were a number of times where something was not put on the House floor because they knew it would pass. And those items that you mentioned would pass. But under the current rules, let me just be clear with the American people. Under the current rules, and probably the rules that get passed, you will not be allowed to offer those amendments on January 4th.
Well, if Kevin McCarthy can call Democrats for votes for the speakership, I can call them for these bipartisan reforms that not only are popular among the membership, they're popular among our fellow Americans, most importantly. I yield back.